I'd like to show you why knowing your why is the start of your journey. Without a strong why, it can be so difficult to reach your maximum potential. My name is Dr. Jason Ballara, and every week I meet with real estate investors and mindset specialists that are taking action in order to build a life according to their own terms. We will break down what drives successful people and allows them to achieve at such a high level. If you are a professional wanting to break through, or simply someone that wants to hear an inspiring story, the Know Your Why podcast is made for you.
Hi everyone, I'm Jason Ballara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast. Today I'm here with Justin Dixon. Justin grew up on a small farm in a very small town in central Pennsylvania, and after college was working in the recruiting industry. So you were there for 15 years and then left this stable job in 2020. So Justin, first of all, thanks for coming on the show. I really appreciate having you on.
Yeah, no, it's great to be here. I appreciate you having me on. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, awesome. So if you would, can you maybe elaborate, tell us your background, tell us your story, and kind of how that got you into real estate?
Yeah, no, and my journey is kind of maybe a bit different or similar to some of the guests that you've had on, but kind of to start from the beginning. Yeah, I grew up in a very small town in central Pennsylvania. This was kind of safer later, but I'll share it now. But yeah, we were a small farm. We had some chickens and pigs and a couple of sheep and all that stuff. So, got to know animals and stuff when I was real young. And then, went to college still in Pennsylvania. And then kind of after college, kind of fell into the recruiting industry. I really didn't know, what I wanted to do. I graduated in 2006. So the economy was still pretty decent, right before everything fell out. And yeah, so fell into recruiting, worked for a big staffing company, was living in York, Pennsylvania. And if any of your listeners know York, Pennsylvania, it's not an awesome place to be necessarily if you're a single 22-year-old. So lived there for a couple of years and then made the transfer to Philadelphia, and always wanted to live and work in a big city. And so I got to move to Philly and stay with that company for a bit. And, kind of worked in an executive search firm that kind of gave me access to a little bit more of the C-suite, staffing a lot of controllers and a lot of high-level finance people. And then switched over to the corporate side, worked at a startup, was kind of their first recruiter, and then worked for Comcast, which is the big behemoth in Philadelphia. That's where they're headquartered. So I was able to work there for 5 years. Did recruiting across the company, from product and technology to human resources and a lot of other things, which was a lot of fun because I got to really see the product that Comcast was putting out. For the listeners that don't know, they're a telecommunications and entertainment company. So that was fun. And then wrapped up my MBA near the end of 2018 and was recruited out to be the head of recruiting for a mid-sized wealth management firm based in Philadelphia. And so that was kind of an opportunity for me to be the kind of head guy when it comes to recruiting and, leading teams and all that fun stuff. And it was a very stable, very good job. But 2 years prior in 2018, I read a book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which really changed my mindset around what I'm doing with my money, where I'm spending my time, where I'm investing my money and all that fun stuff. And it was a little bit of a nervous kind of mindset shift for me because I'm married and I wanted my wife to, be on board with investing in real estate and, pulling some of our money potentially out of the stock market or whatever. And so it was a little bit of a nerve-wracking thing. And I said, hey, Allison, it's like, you got to read this, because and I didn't really give her any preface or explanation. I was like, just read this and let me know what you think. And she's like, what the heck are we doing with our money? Like, why are we not investing in real estate? Why are we not, starting businesses, et cetera, et cetera. So that was a little bit of a weight off my shoulders because she was open to, taking the plunge and going into something that we had no idea about. We had bought a condo a few years prior in Philly, but that was our only real estate experience. And, growing up in a small town, my dad worked for the same manufacturing company for 30 plus years. And the only reason why he left because the plant shut down. And so, I was always taught, save your money, budget, and invest in 401ks. Like that was the financial advisory advice that I got, which is what I did. I was and still am a very budgeted person. I keep a spreadsheet of all of my expenditures and all this stuff. So I still kind of keep that. So once we got this real estate bug in 2018, we just started consuming content, as much as we could, reading books, listening to podcasts. I listened to the Bigger Pockets podcast, every time it was released, and, really devoured a lot of the content that was for free on that site. So for anybody that's kind of newer into real estate investing or wants to get into it, I highly recommend just going to biggerpockets.com. And, I don't get any money from that plug, but just check it out. So then we were like, okay, well, how do we get involved? We were both working W-2 jobs, we were earning okay money, and we're like, we don't have, thousands and thousands and millions of dollars to just invest. And so we were like, okay, let's start small, like most people do, right? And I was never a big proponent of starting with single family, because I was like, okay, well, if you get a single family house and you rent it out, that's great. And that hopefully that person covers the mortgage plus any expenses, and you make a couple bucks a month. But if that person leaves, then you're paying the mortgage, right? You're paying the whole thing. And that was like not my goal. I wanted to have my risk kind of spread out amongst, a handful of tenants. So we focused really heavily on 2 to 4 units, because we still wanted to be in the residential space from a mortgage perspective, because I wasn't sure what it looked like to step up to that 5 units to hit that commercial mortgage, because that was scary for me at that moment. So, so we looked in Philly, because I was always, under the impression that you should always be able to drive to the property and go check on it and all that fun stuff. So we spent like probably 6 months looking in Philadelphia. We put a couple of offers in. We actually had one offer accepted of a 3 unit in just outside of the downtown in this kind of developing area. And we did the inspection, and luckily we had a really good inspector, and we walked out. First of all, one of the units, the tenants were hoarders, literally had boxes all along the walls, and you had like a path that you could walk through to get to the bathroom and to check out the heaters and all this other stuff. It was pretty crazy. Long story short on that one, we walked out of that apartment, and the inspector's like, run away. Don't waste your money on this thing. It's going to be a money pit. So, we spent like $600 on the inspection, and that was money well spent. And so we really couldn't find what we were looking for in Philadelphia. And so, Philadelphia is a very competitive market. It's there's a lot going on in Philadelphia, at least back in 2018 and early 2019. And then I just Googled, like, what are the best real estate investing markets? And the normal players came up: Texas, Florida, Georgia, those normal ones came up. And I was like, well, that's too far. Like, I was okay maybe investing outside of the Philadelphia area, but I didn't want to be in Florida. And then Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania popped up. That was the only one that was kind of north of some of the southern states that kind of popped up. And my mom grew up in Pittsburgh. I was out there for all the holidays and all that fun stuff, because my grandparents still lived there at the time. And so I was like, well, I know Pittsburgh a little bit, so why don't we take a look in Pittsburgh? And so we did. And I literally Googled real estate agents in Pittsburgh that work with investors. I talked to one person, and I said, hey, here's who I am. I've never done this before. I'm looking for a 2 to 4 unit. And he's like, perfect. I will go look at the places for you. I will video like me walking through the actual unit and send them to you. And then we'll make a decision on what we want to do. So he did that for like 8 properties. And the 9th one, we put an offer in, sight unseen. I never saw the property. It was a duplex. It was a twin, so side-by-side units, three bed, 1 bath each side. And we bought it. And the first time I saw it was during the inspection. And the deal on that one was the mortgage was about $1,100, and each side rented out for $1,000. So I was like, okay, I can make that math work. And we hired a property manager that was out in Pittsburgh, and it is the best thing since sliced bread. I literally, the 15th of every month, I get a little ping in my bank account that said I have money deposited. And yeah, we had some hiccups during COVID, and we've had some bad tenants that we had to kick out. But, you know, literally they handle all of it. Some of the stuff they just deal with without me. And I'm okay with that because they know what they're doing, because they don't get paid unless they put a tenant in there that's paying rent. So it's their incentive to really do that. So yeah, we did that in 2019, and then kind of chased the shiny object for a bit. We went after mobile home parks. We wrote letters, like we would stay up at night and, you know, handwrite letters to people, because we would then send them to, you know, people that had 2 to 4 unit apartment complexes and all this stuff. And we looked at buying a house hack. We actually had an offer accepted on a house hack, and then we backed out due to inspection again. And that was in Philadelphia as well. And then we kind of put a pause, because we were like, okay, well, we need to really narrow in on one thing, because you can't be great at 10 different aspects of real estate or really anything, right? And so I kept coming back to this idea of like going bigger. It was always cool when you heard guys that are like, oh yeah, I own a 300 unit apartment complex in Florida or whatever, right? And so I was like, I gotta figure this syndication thing out. So I started kind of narrowing my focus down on how do I get into this type of asset class? What does a syndication actually do, and how do you do it? And I came really quick, realized that it's way different analyzing a 100+ unit apartment complex with, you know, mortgages, and you're raising capital, and you've got, you know, a pref return and all this stuff, versus like a 2 unit, right? It's very easy to understand the math of a 2 unit complex. So I realized really quickly I needed to find people that were doing this already and learn from them. I kind of looked at it like, I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to invest money and pay somebody that's made all of the hit all the potholes, you know, over the years, and they can show me how to navigate the world of syndication. So right now we're in kind of late 2019, and I was working at this wealth management company, and I was saving money, and I'd always wanted to start my own business. I always wanted to kind of, you know, part of the whole, you know, rich dad poor dad thing is, you know, invest in yourself, you know, spend time working for yourself, and, you know, you can, you know, typically you can do better than if you just kind of sit at a job for forever.
Right.
And so my wife and I were like, okay, 2019, the economy was still good. Everything, you know, people were still hiring and everything. So I was like, okay, January 2020, I'm going to cut the cord. I'm going to quit my job. I was making over six figures at the time. And I'm like, I'm just going to quit. I'm going to focus on real estate, and I'm going to really focus on recruiting. And that's what I did. So January 27th of 2020 was the first day that I was officially self-employed, an entrepreneur, whatever you want to call it. And I think January 31st, COVID was deemed a global pandemic. So I almost timed it exactly right. And so 2020 was a bit of a unique year. You know, I questioned what the heck I did numerous times throughout the days, and, you know, thought about quitting and thought about trying to find, you know, a corporate job again, because, you know, nobody was hiring in 2020. Everybody was kind of just not sure what was going on with COVID and everything. And so I took that time to really learn the syndication world. And I joined a syndication group that he was a mentor and coach, and he had, you know, curriculum, and, you know, really walked you through how to analyze these deals. He had his own analyzer, you know, which is a very sophisticated Excel document that I would never be able to recreate in a million years. And I probably analyzed over 200 multifamily deals across probably 7 states that year. I drove from Philadelphia to the Carolinas for a few days and just drove around North Carolina and South Carolina, looking at deals, meeting with brokers, and just really trying to learn the ropes. And we started our passive investing journey in the syndication world. We actually pulled some money out of an old 401k and transitioned it into a self-directed IRA so we could passively invest in a real estate deal, because we wanted to really learn what it was all about from the investor side, right? Because if we're going to find a deal eventually and then raise capital on that deal or other people's deals, I need to feel comfortable talking to my potential investors about what it is and how do they get paid and what's the process and everything. So 2021, we passively invested, or 2020, sorry, we passively invested in one deal. 2022 or 2021, sorry, we invested in 5 other deals. We raised capital on 2 of those. And the 2 that we raised capital on were in Florida, and one was in Kansas City. So, last year recruiting was really good. And so I made a decent amount of money in recruiting. And so we took a lot of that cash and just pumped it into real estate. And that's kind of where we are right now. We're, early 2022, the recruiting market is still very busy. The real estate market is crazy in certain areas. I live in Austin, Texas now. We moved here in in October of 2020. And the Austin market is a bit ridiculous, frankly.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the story. I kind of rambled there for a bit. Yeah.
No, that actually, I love it. That was really, there's a lot we could talk about in there, because I think you literally just in 18, 19 minutes just said, this is how you get started. like these are the steps that anybody could take almost all of those steps and apply them. Even the simple part of, well, I just Googled such and such, right? There's no excuse that the information's not available. There's no excuse that you can't figure out how to get financially literate, financial freedom. There's no reason that anybody can't do it at this point. The information is out there. Especially if you want to be a passive investor, then it's quite easy. But and then you took the steps of kind of started with your duplex. You realized that wasn't probably easy to scale, and then went towards syndication and got a mentor. Really all the things that people say this is what you need to do. You kind of just wrapped it all up in a nutshell, which is awesome. So we can kind of break down any of those steps if you want to, but I'm curious about a couple of things specifically. One, I think, handing Rich Dad Poor Dad to your wife is a little bit of a bold move, in the sense that, right, it could also go the other way. Fortunately, she did what she did what you wanted her to do in terms of her reaction to it. But yeah, it could go the other way for sure. And I think that's something that probably a lot of people, married couples, might struggle if one of the spouses is really fired up and knows, hey, this is the way to go. And obviously you and I are biased and we believe that it is the way to go, but it's if your spouse or family members or whatever, they may not have had that same epiphany that, that, oh, look at this, look at what's available. So I do think that's really cool that you just started there, hey, read this book.
Well, the good thing is she's a reader. So, she reads 100 times faster than I do. And, we'll go on vacations and we'll be there for, at a beach for a week, and she'll read 10 books and I'll read one maybe, so I knew that, it's not a very long read, right? So I knew if I just said, hey, I think you should read this. This could be interesting. And essentially I said, I bartered with her. I said, hey, you give me a book that you'd like me to read, and I'll read it. And luckily she didn't take me up on that offer, because she knew that it would take me a year to read the book and it'd take her a weekend to read Rich Dad Poor Dad. So, but no, you're right. It was a little bit a leap of faith, a little bit, to say, hey, I think, read this, because I think this could really changed the way that we think about where we're spending our time. Obviously, I wanted to start a recruiting business. I really want to start a business, but it's kind of one of those things I kind of fell into recruiting. So I was like, well, I know how to do this. And so why don't I just start my own business? And the recruiting world is very easy to get into. The barrier to entry is really small. You just need really an LLC and a laptop, frankly, and you can be a recruiter, which is, not good for me because there's a lot of crappy recruiters out there, but it's also good for me because there's a lot of crappy recruiters out there. So, but yeah, I mean, just getting the knowledge is part of it, right? And we fell into this. I'm a risk averse person by nature, and so is my wife. And so I kind of wish one of us was a little bit more risky in the sense of there's a couple of deals that I regret in Philadelphia that I could have bought earlier, and it would have been a great deal, but it was just like, I don't know, you kind of get an analysis paralysis mode. And so I envy the people that just take massive action and they kind of throw caution to the wind a little bit, calculated risks, but yeah, it was interesting for sure.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I think having that support, whether she is working with you or just is okay with what you're doing, obviously that's either one is working with you, gives you some help, but really it's the support that, hey, I believe in this as well. You got to be on the same page. I think it's extremely important because you really, there is some risk to it. There's risk to leaving your full-time W-2 job. People argue that there's risk to staying at a full-time W-2 job. So there's risk on both sides, and it's just kind of figuring out what works for you. But you did, the other thing I kind of wanted to dive in on a little bit is you talked about, you started your own recruiting business. And I find that like everybody, whatever your background is, every person I've talked to on this podcast, we're up over 70, like every person, their background, it may not seem like it's related to real estate, but then when you kind of dive into it, it always has provided some sort of skill set that is applicable to real estate. Now, my thought would be that as a recruiter, capital raising would be your strength, but tell me, kind of how that has worked for you, where you see it fitting into your, real estate role.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because it does dovetail kind of in a couple ways. One, I'm taking down a 100-unit apartment complex requires a team, right? And so unless you're independently wealthy and you've done it for a long time, it's very difficult to say, hi, I'm a new person and I want to take down a 100-unit, because a lot of times you won't be able to get the mortgage, right? Because they need to show track record and all this stuff. So part of being a recruiter is finding people that have a skill set that you're looking for and, using that skill set to your advantage. And so that's one of the things that really helped me was to say, okay, I know I learned how to underwrite, and that's been very helpful. And I've also been able to find other people that are good at raising capital. So you build a little bit of a team that you can, really dive into and really kind of go after these bigger deals. So kind of the capital raising piece is something I'm getting into now. And so, working with people that I've networked with for other things has definitely been a benefit for sure. So I wouldn't say I'm an expert at capital raising by any means, but, I'm starting to get there. And, a lot of capital raising is just asking people, what's their situation? What are their goals? Have they ever really invested in real estate before? And then, what type of markets they're interested in, what type of deals they're interested in, what's their risk profile. Some people are super risk averse like myself, and they want to find a deal that's conservatively underwritten and everything like that, and then go from there. So yeah, it's kind of the recruiting background has given me some definite benefits for sure. And hopefully they continue to pay off as we go forward.
Yeah. Justin, I'm going to pause for just a second because your picture's frozen. So let's see. Okay, perfect. We had a little bit of a technical glitch there, but hopefully we've solved that. So yeah, we were talking about how, you know, your recruiting skill set applies to real estate. Now,
Yep.
where are you at? I know you said you did the one deal in 2020 and then 5 deals in 2021. So are you kind of strictly investing passively right now? Although you did say you raised capital for a couple of them. What's your portfolio look like at this point?
Yeah, right now my kind of focus is I still look for deals. Like I live in Texas, in Austin, and so Austin, we actually were invested final on a 95 unit deal last week that we lost out on, and I learned what the actual winning price was, and it was way outside of what I could get to and make sense. Plus, they put down a lot of day one hard money, non-refundable. So I look in San Antonio, and then I have so I'm part of this larger kind of syndication group. It's got about 120 people across the country in it. And then within that group, I have a group of guys that we look at a few deals, or look at deals together in Texas. So 2 guys live in Houston, a couple people live in Dallas. And then I look a lot in San Antonio. So I'm actively going out and trying to find more deals, because I would, my goal is to be kind of the lead sponsor on some of these things down the road, and actually take one, and find one and take it down. But right now, my focus outside of that is really capital raising, building that engine. We launched a new brand at the end of last year, Great Venture Capital. That's our real estate investing arm. And so that's one of my main areas of focus, is trying to build up that investor pipeline, people that are, entrepreneurs that, don't know, they've been heads down, they've been, building a business and they want to, build some passive income, or, like I was back in the day, a W-2 employee, just thinking about real estate and wasn't really sure how to get into it. And, I know I'm kind of going a little bit off topic here, but that's one of the things that's really interesting, is a lot of people that are, they were like me when I was, in a W-2 job. They had no idea about real estate investing, or if they did, they thought about, investing in a single family house and renting a single family house out. They didn't really think that they could get access to, 100, 200, 300 unit apartment complexes. They thought that was, for accredited investors, which some of them are, right? Some of the, you can only be accredited, but yeah, it's been interesting. And so right now our portfolio, 2021, we did 5 deals. In 2021, I think the total units that we have right now under our kind of portfolio, if you will, passive and active, is over 950. The ones that we've raised capital on, that we're general partners on, is a little over 340. And those are in 2 states, Florida and Arkansas. So trying to get those numbers higher, trying to raise more money this year. And, so far it's been interesting talking to people that know me as a recruiter, because that's like been my persona for the first 15 years of my life, and still partially is. And so when people see me pushing out like content or talking about real estate, because I talk about real estate way more than I talk about recruiting, because it's new, it's interesting, it's something that I'm super passionate about, because that's the long game, is real estate, like building up those passive income streams, so that, I don't have to be, I don't have to work, at some point. And, we've got a formula that my wife and I kind of put together that is like, okay, in the next 5 years, we should have enough money to hit that kind of level 1 of financial freedom, so that we can essentially cover all of our lifestyle or living expenses, like housing, cars, cell phones, food, will be covered by passive income. So, it's baby steps, and it's not like investing in Bitcoin 5 years ago where it just blows up in a day. It takes some discipline and some time, which, can be a little bit frustrating for some investors, for sure. But real estate's a long game for me.
Yeah, for sure. It's a not a get rich quick scheme, but it is a get rich for sure. It takes time. As long as you stick with it, you'll get there. So really cool. So I guess let's switch gears a little bit right now and talk. We'll go through kind of the questions, so that I like to ask each guest. And Justin, the first one I ask every guest, it's based on the name of the show, but being Know Your Why. What is your why? What sort of drives you towards bigger and bigger success?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just time, owning my time, right? And my wife and I's time. Like we don't have kids, we've got 2 cats, so we've got 2 fur babies. But we really want to be kind of the masters of our domain. We want to be able to do what we want, when we want, where we want. And it really drives me because you can, when you think about real estate investing, and because it's not a get rich quick scheme, it kind of frustrates people, and it kind of makes them kind of start really good, and then they kind of just put it on the back burner. And so, we've really said, okay, well, if we're going to do this, we need to invest X amount of dollars per year, and that should accumulate and build up enough passive income that'll kind of set us free, if you will. And having that goal and having that kind of direction is important, because when we first started, it was like, oh, we'll just invest in real estate. But then it was like, well, what does that even mean? How much real estate do we need? And when we did the duplex, it was great. And I was like, oh, cool. We're going to make, I don't remember what it was that we started out with. It's increased because we pushed rents a little bit, but it was like $400 a month. And I was like, well, we can't retire off $400 a month. Right. So, I think part of the why, for us is owning our time, but also it's setting and seeing what the end result could be. Right. And so, there's a bunch of books out there that talk about, Vivid Vision is one that we both read. And I think it's a great book because it makes you sit down and think about, a lot of times you think about what's the worst thing that can happen, but you sometimes need to think about what's the best thing that could happen, because that could actually happen. Right. So that was a long-winded answer, but, owning our time is really kind of our why, and what kind of drives us to keep pushing and all that. So.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree. And I think that Vivid Vision is a fantastic book. I like that one too. And this is not part of the questions, but you touched on it and before as well. And I did want to talk about that concept of, like, we didn't know that this stuff was available. Lots of people don't know that it's available. And just, I think it's a part of our responsibility as real estate investors to actually try and kind of share that information. Because you said, when you started, you thought, oh, we'll buy a house or buy a duplex or something like that. And it's like, I talk to friends of mine and they know you as a recruiter. Most of my friends know me as a veterinarian. Like they look at you funny when you start talking real estate initially, because they're like, you're a vet, or you're a recruiter, whatever. Right. They're like, that's not your thing. But it's kind of getting past that, like, and then you have to explain what syndication is, because I have friends that are accredited, they could invest, but they're like, so you live in Los Angeles, are you just going to be like the next Flip or Flop? And I'm like, no, no, I have no intention of being on HGTV. Like, that's not at all what this is. But it's right. It's a true story. I mean, it's a really, the more people you talk to about it that aren't in the space, it's like the people in the space, everybody knows this is what you're talking, it's kind of like everybody's talking about it. But outside of it, it's just not well known. And people, I think, are unaware, maybe a little mistrusting. And so I think it is on us to spread the message, I guess. So
yeah. And one thing before we go on, one thing that was interesting that we learned, kind of, that was a little bit of a unknown kind of reaction or kind of byproduct of kind of getting in, really drinking the Kool-Aid of real estate investing, is we wanted to talk about it a lot. And we wanted to talk about it with our friends and family, and they didn't know, they were still in the W-2, work 40 years, retire, right, and all that stuff, which totally fine. Like, I know a lot of people that do that and they're living their life, and that's totally fine for them. And so when we pivoted and like kind of made that mindset shift, and we would go out to dinner with our friends, I would be talking about, we wouldn't talk about our jobs. We'd talk about, oh, we went to Pittsburgh again to look at another property, or, I'm going to, the Carolinas to look at a 100-unit apartment complex, or I put an offer in on a 100-unit, thing. And it's just like their mind and their kind of eyes just kind of glaze over. Yeah. And so we were like, well, we need to find new people. Like, and, obviously we love our friends, and our family, because even some of our family members just like, that's cool, good luck kind of a thing. And it was more of a, I'll see you later kind of a thing. But yeah, it was definitely a byproduct that we weren't really expecting. And luckily, I think that's also one of the benefits of living in the age that we do, with with social media and, podcasts and things like that, you can find your tribe and find people that, want to talk about real estate and, they want to go grab a beer and, just sit there and talk about, the deals that you're looking at and the areas that you're looking at and all that. So, yeah, that was just a funny anecdote I wanted to throw in there.
Yeah, no, it's totally true. It's totally true. It's like you almost have to, I don't know, have two separate communities of friends, right? Like, because you get that sort of glazed look, and it's like I don't want to force anything on anyone, and I feel very passionate about it, and as I know you are. So it's kind of like it's a challenging transition to make, I think, for sure. But anyway, second question is, tell us something about yourself that maybe isn't common knowledge, that maybe whether that's a special skill or a hobby or something, anything that comes to mind.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of let the cat out of the bag earlier in the show when I talk about living on a small farm. When I tell people, most people know me from Philadelphia. Like that's like I don't really hang out with any of my high school friends because a lot of them stayed in my hometown, and that's what the town was, right? The very few people got out, so to speak, and I was one from an early age that I was like, I don't want to go to college and then come home, because I knew once I moved out from college, I didn't go back to my house for more than like a week, and because I knew if I did, you get sucked in and you just stay there forever, right? And so hometown was great when I grew up. Don't want to live there now, but anyway, normally people don't know that I grew up on a farm, and we weren't farmers. We weren't, it was small. We called it a farm ed. It was 10 acres. And it had 7 of the acres were tillable land, so we actually rented it out to a couple of the local farmers. So they would plant corn or, soybeans or whatever the case is. But, I had a very unique childhood to most of the people that I meet now, because they grew up in suburban areas of the country, and a lot of people in Austin are transplants, and not a lot of people that I meet, at least at this point, grew up here. So it's always funny to kind of talk about, I grew up on a farm, and people are like, oh, well, what was that like? And, you get up in the morning and you go get fresh eggs and all that fun stuff. And, you'd have pigs for a while, and then somehow you'd have a freezer full of bacon, and you didn't, as a kid, you didn't know how that
didn't know
got
why.
there. Yeah. But yeah, so that's it. Again, I didn't enjoy it enough when I was a kid, and now it's like, oh man, I would love to kind of have the space, because I live in an apartment complex now, and it's just like people are all over the place. So yeah, it's so that's typically what I share.
I grew up in a small town as well, and then we didn't have a farm, but grew up in a small town, and then kind of realized I always thought I was afraid of the city. And then I moved to the city, and now I never want out of the city. Like I love being in big cities, because it's just like so much opportunity and things to do and stuff. And so then it becomes tricky. Like, well, okay, if I want space, and I would like, I love fresh eggs. I would love to have a few chickens just for that reason alone. Like, I think my kids would love them. Like, I think it would be great, but I can't, it's hard to do when you're,
you can't put them on your balcony in your apartment or
right.
It's
a challenge. It's a big challenge, but no, that's super cool. I like that, like sort of small farm feel. I think that can be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Next question for you is what's the best way for people to reach you when they hear this and they want to reach out? How would you like them to connect?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always on LinkedIn, so find me on LinkedIn, shoot me a note. We also have our website, greatventurecapital.com. You can get to me there. You can probably put my email in the show notes. It's just justin@greatventurecapital.com. But yeah, I'm on LinkedIn all day with recruiting, and also, LinkedIn is a great resource to network with other potential investors and other multifamily people. So shoot me a note on LinkedIn. That's not a bad place to get me either.
Okay, great. Yeah, we'll have that in the show notes. Last question for you is, and I think you've actually talked a bit about this, but maybe you have another, sort of pearl of wisdom. But what advice would you give to people that are kind of just starting out, maybe a year behind you in their journey, and they want to kind of get to where you're at? What would you tell them?
Yeah, I mean, I think I said it a little bit earlier, but it's kind of just the start kind of model is just, really and I chased the shiny object, and I wish I would have narrowed in. And, somebody told me, because when I first started looking at deals, I was looking anywhere. I took a shotgun approach and just looked at any deal that came across my plate. And, it kind of is somewhat counterintuitive to some people to say, nope, you need to become an expert in one area. And so I really wish I would have gone back and started and said, okay, these are the 3 markets that I'm going to focus on, or 2 markets. And I'm going to visit them. I'm going to meet brokers, because you have to get in the broker spaces, doing phone calls and emails. You don't get access to the good stuff a lot of the times. So I really wish, for anybody that's listening, that's newer, find a couple markets, especially if you're doing multifamily or even single family, I guess it would work. Narrow down to where you really want to be focused on, a couple markets, go visit, see the areas, because all markets are pockets, right? So there might be a street or an intersection that's great, and then you go across the street and it's a war zone. So and the other piece of advice that I really wish we would have done earlier in our lives is house hacking. I really wish we would have bought like a 3 or 4 unit, lived in one of them, and then rented the other ones out, or even had a house that had multiple bedrooms and just have roommates, have them pay your mortgage. Because, I lived in a house with a buddy who owned it, and, he didn't know what he was doing, other than he didn't know he was house hacking or whatever. He just knew he was like, I want to buy a house and do this. And I would say if you have some money, or maybe you have a little bit of money, you want to really get started, house hack. That would be the way that I would go back if I could.
Yeah. No, it really is a great way. I mean, I did it. I didn't know I was house hacking, but I was like, I wanted to own a house. I didn't really have the ability to afford the mortgage entirely on my own. And it was like, well, I'll get some friends to live with me. So it's kind of like, I think sort of out of necessity, but now it has a term and people use it. Right. But it is a very easy way to get started. You can have, a small down payment. If you do like the FHA loan, it's only 3.5%. So, I mean, you really can get in there for very little money out of pocket. And then if you've got friends, tenants, whatever, covering that mortgage, it really is a great piece to kind of start and take your money and then start to, put it into whatever the next endeavor is. So it makes total sense.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Awesome. Well, Justin, this was great. I really do think, especially for sort of beginning, your story in the beginning really is a good picture for people of, look, this is a really good path to take in getting started. So awesome. Thank you for coming on and sharing your story. Yeah. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, no, it was great to do it. I'm happy to do it. And if anybody has any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. And this was fun. I appreciate it.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll sign off. Have a great day, everyone.
I'd like to show you why knowing your why is the start of your journey. Without a strong why, it can be so difficult to reach your maximum potential. My name is Dr. Jason Ballara, and every week I meet with real estate investors and mindset specialists that are taking action in order to build a life according to their own terms. We will break down what drives successful people and allows them to achieve at such a high level. If you are a professional wanting to break through, or simply someone that wants to hear an inspiring story, the Know Your Why podcast is made for you.